I rang the doorbell of my son's house on a Sunday. My daughter-in-law opened the door and screamed, "Not again! I already told you Sundays are for resting." I went back home crying, but on Tuesday, when she called me asking for a favor, I hung up in her face. I know what you are all thinking. How does a mother hang up the phone on her daughter-in-law? Well, let me tell you that Tuesday was not the beginning of this story. It was the end of 3 years of enduring humiliations that shattered my soul into pieces so small I no longer even knew where my dignity began. My name is Ruth. I am 68 years old, with hands wrinkled from working so hard and a heart that I thought was never going to learn to say no. But that Sunday, November 11th, something broke inside of me. If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe to the channel to keep hearing real confessions like this one. Hit the like button so more people can find the courage to set boundaries. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I remember the sun beating down on the back of my neck as I walked the 4 blocks from the bus stop to Matthew's house. My Matthew, my only son. The boy I raised alone since he was 12 years old, when his father passed away and left me with a sewing machine and a mountain of bills to pay. I was carrying a Tupperware container with my homemade pot roast that I had been preparing since 5 o'clock in the morning. The pot roast that Matthew had loved since he was a little boy, the one I made with fresh ingredients from the local farmer's market, preparing every single thing with my own hands. I thought that maybe if I arrived with food, Chloe would be in a better mood. I rang the doorbell. I heard hurried footsteps on the other side. The door swung open, and there she was, Chloe, my daughter-in-law, with her hair pulled back into a perfect ponytail, flawless pale pink nails, and wearing designer yoga pants that cost more than my monthly rent. And she looked at me as if I were a door-to-door salesperson bothering her on a Sunday. "Not again," she screamed. Her voice echoed down the entire street. "I already told you that Sundays are for resting. You cannot just come over whenever you feel like it." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "Chloe, I just brought some pot roast for Matthew." "We do not care about your pot roast. We are on a diet." And before I could say another word, she closed the door. It was not a simple close. It was a slam that made the windows rattle. I stood there, holding that Tupperware container in my trembling hands, staring at the varnished wooden door. That door. The one to the house that had been made possible thanks to my life savings. Because here is what nobody knew. 3 years ago, when Matthew was going to marry Chloe, they came to see me with long faces. They needed $150,000 for a down payment on a house in a decent neighborhood, as Chloe put it. Close to her work and full of the right kind of people, she added, looking at my small apartment on the south side of Chicago as if it were a dump. I was living in a little house that my late husband and I bought in 1985. Small, yes. With cracks in the walls, yes. But it was ours. It had a little garden where hydrangeas grew, and a small room where I spent 30 years sewing school uniforms to get Matthew ahead in life. I sold that house. I sold every memory, every corner where my husband and I were happy, every square foot where Matthew took his first steps. I did it because I thought, he is my son, his happiness is my happiness. I signed the papers, received the $150,000, and I gave it all to them. Every single penny. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent for $900 a month, and they moved into their new 3-bedroom house with a backyard. That house where they were now slamming the door in my face. I walked back to the bus stop, 8 blocks, because I was so dazed that I walked right past it. Every step felt as heavy as if I were carrying stones on my shoulders. People were looking at me strangely. A woman asked me if I was okay. I could not answer. I just kept walking with that Tupperware of pot roast clutched tightly to my chest. When I got to my apartment, I sat on the old couch I had saved from the sale of my house, and I cried. I cried like I had not cried since my husband's funeral. I cried until my chest ached, until my eyes were swollen, until it got dark, and I sat there, alone, in the shadows. Monday passed like a gray cloud. I did not eat. I did not go out. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering at what point I had become so insignificant to my own son. And then came Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning. The phone rang. I saw the name on the screen. Chloe. My first instinct was not to answer, but the habit of a lifetime won out. I picked up. "Mother-in-law, sweetie, How are you? Her voice was honey. Poisoned honey. I am fine. I lied. Look, I am calling you because I need a huge favor, urgently. My parents are coming to stay for 2 weeks, and I need to renovate the guest room. New paint, nice curtains, a good orthopedic mattress. It will be about $8,000. You have savings, right? I promise I will pay you back in 6 months. Well, maybe 8, but it is guaranteed. Silence. In my head, all the images flashed like lightning. The slammed door on Sunday, the time she had humiliated me, the house bought with my money, my hands wrinkled from sewing so much to give Matthew everything. No, I said. And my own voice surprised me. It sounded firm. It sounded clear. What? Chloe shrieked. What do you mean, no? I do not have that money. And if I did, I would not give it to you. And I hung up. I hung up the phone and stared at my hand as if it belonged to someone else. Chloe called 8 more times that afternoon. 8 times. I did not answer any of them, but what I did not know was that this simple word, that no, was going to trigger a chain of events that would change everything. Because at 6 o'clock in the evening, when it was already starting to get dark, someone knocked on my door violently. It was Matthew, and the look on his face meant nothing good. What was my own son going to yell at me about? And what secret was he about to discover that would change everything forever? Matthew barged into my apartment like an angry bull. He did not say hello. He did not ask how I was. He just started yelling at me. Why did you do that to Chloe, Mom? She is crying. You hung up the phone on her as if she were just anybody. I sat on the couch looking at him. My son, the baby I had carried in my arms, who I had fed with my own hands when we did not even have enough money for baby formula. Matthew, I said slowly. On Sunday, your wife slammed the door in my face. At the house that I helped you buy. You are starting with that again. It is always the same thing. I gave you this. I gave you that. You know what, Mom? I am tired of your guilt trips. He left, slamming the door again. 2 slammed doors in 3 days. That is what my son's love felt like now. But let me tell you how we got here. Because this story did not start with Chloe. It started 56 years ago, when I was 12 years old, and my mom taught me to sew on a black Singer machine that I still keep. I was born in a small farming town in Kentucky. My family was so poor that sometimes dinner was just some beans and cornbread. But my mom used to tell me, Ruth, a woman who knows how to use her hands will never starve, and she was right. At 19, I met Tom at the county fair. He was a construction worker, with calloused hands and a shy smile. We got married 3 months later, with a simple ceremony at the church and a reception where we only had iced tea and a potluck dinner that all the neighbors helped prepare. We moved to Chicago looking for a better future. Tom got a job in construction. I started sewing school uniforms for a store downtown. White button-downs, navy blue skirts, khaki pants. My fingers became covered in calluses from pushing the fabric under the needle so much. We rented a tiny, cramped apartment in a rough part of the city. No private bathroom, no hot water. But we were happy. At 23, Matthew was born. A chubby baby with red cheeks and a powerful cry. Tom cried tears of joy every time he held him. He looks just like you, Ruthie, he would say. And I felt like my heart was going to burst from so much love. The early years were hard but beautiful. Tom worked from sunrise to sunset. I sewed at night, after putting Matthew to sleep, under an old lamp that constantly flickered. We saved every dollar. We dreamed of buying our own little house someday, and we did it. In 1985, when Matthew was 8 years old, we bought a small house on the south side. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a tiny kitchen, and a small yard. It cost $45,000 back then, which we managed to save up over 6 years, hiding the money in a cookie tin under the mattress. The day we got the keys, the 3 of us cried, holding each other in that empty living room. Tom painted the walls a light yellow. I hung up floral curtains that I had sewn myself. Matthew planted a little apple tree in the backyard. Those were the happiest years of my life. But happiness in my family has always been borrowed. Matthew was 12 when Tom fell from some scaffolding. 4 stories down. He died in the hospital 3 days later, without ever regaining consciousness. I did not even get to say goodbye. I was left alone with a young boy, a half-paid mortgage, and a sewing machine. I cried for a whole week. Then I dried my tears. I sat down at that machine and told myself, Matthew is going to college. He is going to be somebody in life. He is going to have what Tom and I never had. And I delivered on that promise. I turned into a machine. I sewed from 5 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. School uniforms, prom dresses, baby clothes, whatever it took. My fingers bled from pricking myself with the needle so much. My back ached from being hunched over, but I did not stop. Matthew went to school in the mornings and helped me in the afternoons. He organized the threads by color, ironed the seams, packed the orders. He was a responsible, affectionate boy. He would hug me when he saw I was tired and say, "When I grow up, I am going to work and you are going to rest, Mom." I paid for his elementary school, middle school, and high school. When it was time for college, I sold the gold jewelry my mother had left me. 2 pairs of earrings, a chain, a ring. I got $5,000 for them. It was not enough, so I took out a loan that I finished paying off 5 years later. Matthew studied civil engineering. He graduated with honors. He got a job at a major construction firm. I cried tears of pride the day I saw him with his degree, in his new suit, with that bright future he had built using my ruined hands. "We did it, Tom," I told my husband's picture that night. "Our son is a professional." Matthew visited me every week. He took me out to eat. He bought things for the house. He was attentive and loving. I thought my whole life of sacrifice had been worth it. Until 5 years ago, when Chloe arrived, he met her at his job. She was an administrative assistant, 10 years younger than him, from a middle-class family. Pretty, well put together, with an air of superiority she barely tried to hide. When Matthew introduced her to me, I tried to look at her in a positive light. "Any woman who makes my son happy is welcome," I told myself. I welcomed her into my home with open arms. I made a big pot of chili, showed her pictures of Matthew as a little boy, told her stories. She smiled, but there was something cold in her eyes, as if she were evaluating, calculating. On their wedding day, I gave her the most precious treasure I owned, the vintage silk shawl my mom had given me before she died. It was a deep blue color, with gold flowers hand stitched into it. It had belonged to my grandmother. It was worth more than any expensive gift. "It is yours now," I told Chloe. "You are part of the family." She took it without much enthusiasm. "Thanks, mother-in-law," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. I should have seen the signs from that moment, but a mother always wants to believe everything will be fine. What I did not know was that that shawl, that symbol of love and welcoming, was going to become the center of a betrayal that would break my soul. The first 6 months after the wedding were strange. Chloe was still polite to me, but something was off. It was as if every smile was measured, every hug lasted exactly 2 seconds, not a second more. Like when you hug someone at a corporate networking event, not your family. The first time I felt the venom was at a family dinner. We were at Chloe's parents' house, a house in Lincoln Park with elegant furniture and expensive paintings on the walls. I was wearing my favorite floral blouse, the one I had bought at a local thrift store that made me feel pretty. It was a light fabric with a yellow sunflower print. Chloe looked me up and down when I arrived. "Oh, sweetie," she said with a little laugh. "That blouse is getting a little worn out, isn't it? At your age, you should look a bit more presentable. If you want, one day we can go shopping and I can help you pick out more appropriate clothes." She said it in front of everyone. Her mom let out an uncomfortable cough. Her dad stared down at his plate. Matthew was looking at his phone and did not even hear it. I only managed to say, "That is fine, thank you," but inside, my stomach tied in knots. Appropriate? What was wrong with my blouse? That night, when I got home, I just stared at my clothes in the closet. Suddenly, all my blouses looked old, faded, poor to me. But that was just the beginning. The next humiliations came disguised as concern. At family gatherings, when I told a story about when Matthew was a little boy, Chloe would interrupt me. "Oh, mother-in-law, you have told that story 1,000 times. People are getting bored." Or worse. When I talked about my late husband Tom, She would yawn exaggeratedly or change the subject. Yes, yes, we all know Tom was wonderful. Does anyone want more wine? Matthew never said anything. Never. 6 months after the wedding, Chloe stopped answering my calls. I would call to say hello, to ask how they were doing, and she would send text messages. We are busy. We will call you later. They never did. When I went to visit them without warning, Chloe would open the door looking annoyed. Mother-in-law, you should call before coming over. We are not always available. But the hardest blow came 2 years ago. Matthew and Chloe invited me over for lunch on a Sunday. I arrived excited, bringing a homemade cheesecake I had baked early that morning. We sat at the table, and Chloe dropped the bomb. Mother-in-law, we need to talk to you about something important. She looked at Matthew, who swallowed hard. You see, we are trying to get pregnant, and the doctor says stress is very bad for fertility. Oh, how exciting, I said. You are going to have a baby? Yes, but we need space, peace, and quiet. Your constant visits stress us out a lot. I froze. My visits stress you out? It is not personal, Matthew interjected without looking me in the eyes. It is just that. You come over like 3 times a week, and sometimes it is a lot. I just want to see you, know how you are doing. Chloe sighed dramatically. That is why we established a new rule. You can only come over on Thursday afternoons from 4 to 6 o'clock, 2 hours. That way we can organize our weeks. 2 hours, a single day, with my own son. And Sundays? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sundays are sacred to us. For resting, for being alone, no visitors from anyone. I accepted it because I thought it was temporary, because I thought that when they had the baby, everything would change. But months passed, and Chloe never got pregnant. And the rule remained. Thursdays from 4 to 6 o'clock. Not a minute more. The humiliations became increasingly cruel. One time, I arrived 5 minutes late to my permitted time slot because the bus was delayed. Chloe opened the door and looked at her watch with exaggeration. It is 4:05. We agreed on 4 o'clock sharp. Now you only have until 5:55. Another time, on my 67th birthday, Matthew called me at 10 o'clock at night. Sorry, Mom, we forgot your birthday. Chloe just had a really heavy day at work. There was no cake, no hug, just a 2-minute phone call. But the worst thing, the thing that truly destroyed me, was the day of the leftovers. 3 weeks before the Sunday of the slammed door, I arrived on a Thursday at my permitted time. There were voices and laughter inside. I rang the doorbell. Chloe opened it, and behind her, I saw the living room full of people. Her parents, her 2 sisters, several friends, music, plates of food, glasses of wine. Oh, mother-in-law, she said without letting me in. Today we are having a family get-together. It is private. But can I just come in to say hello? No, really. It is only for my immediate family. Besides, you already ate at your house, right? I managed to catch a glimpse of the patio table. There was a huge barbecue, salads, desserts. I recognized the tablecloth. It was the one I had given them for their anniversary. Wait, Chloe said, and disappeared inside. She came back with a disposable plastic container. Here, we saved you a little meat. It is good. She handed me the leftovers at the door, as if I were a beggar. Chloe's mother walked by in the background and saw me standing there. She let out a nervous laugh and looked away. I searched for Matthew with my eyes. He was sitting in the backyard, holding a beer, staring at his plate. He did not say anything. He did not do anything. I went back to my house, clutching that container of leftovers to my chest, tears burning my eyes. That night I barely slept. I sat in the kitchen, staring at that container, thinking, at what point did I become a nuisance to my own son? But if I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to me, I was completely wrong. Because what came next would make me hit the darkest rock bottom of my life. Saturday, November 10th started like any other day. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, made my morning coffee with a dash of cinnamon, and sat at my small table to watch the news. Outside, a soft rain was falling, the kind of fine mist that gets everything wet without making a sound. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Matthew. Mom? His voice sounded panicked, broken. Chloe fell in the bathroom. She is bleeding. We are on our way to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Can you come? The world stopped. What? What do you mean she fell? Is she okay? I do not know, Mom. She hit her head. Please, come. The emergency room. He hung up. My hands were shaking so much I could barely tie my shoes. I grabbed my purse, took out all the money I had saved for rent. $300 in crumpled bills. Just in case they need something, I thought. I ran out into the rain. I did not wait for the bus. I took a taxi that charged me $25 to get to the hospital. I arrived completely soaked, my hair plastered to my face, my heart pounding in my ears. Emergency room, please, I told the security guard at the entrance. I ran down the white hallways that smelled of disinfectant. I looked in the waiting room. Nothing. I asked at the front desk. Patient's name? Chloe Vance. Well, Chloe Vance Smith. The nurse checked the computer. We do not have anyone registered under that name. But my son called me. He said they were coming here. Let me check again. She typed, frowned. No, ma'am, there have been no admissions under that name in the last 12 hours. I called Matthew. Once, twice, 5 times. He did not answer. I dialed him 15 times in a row. Nothing. I texted him. Son, where are you? I am at the hospital and I cannot find you. Please answer me. I am worried. Half an hour passed. 40 minutes. An hour. I sat in those hard chairs in the waiting room, wet, shivering, holding my phone, waiting. Finally, at 11:30, I got a text from Matthew. False alarm, Mom. Chloe just slipped, but she is fine. We are already home. I read that message 3 times. False alarm, we are already home. Not a single thank you for coming. No apology for worrying you, not even an are you okay? Nothing. I took the bus back to my apartment, still wet, still shivering, but no longer from the cold. From rage, from pain, from something that had no name, but was burning inside me like acid. That night I could not sleep. I sat in the darkness of my living room, listening to the rain hit the window, replaying every detail in my head, the urgency in Matthew's voice, my desperate sprint, the money I brought, the hour I spent waiting without a response. Why had they done that to me? Was it a test? A cruel game? Or did I just not matter enough for them to let me know everything was fine? Sunday dawned with a clear sky after the storm. I had not closed my eyes all night. I felt empty, hollow, like a shell, but I needed to see them. I needed to know that Chloe was really okay. I needed to look my son in the eyes and ask him, why? At 10:30 I got dressed. I put on my denim skirt and a peach-colored blouse. I combed my hair carefully. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Swollen eyes, deep wrinkles, a defeated expression. I am just going to check that she is okay, I told myself. 5 minutes and I will leave. I made the pot roast starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, because that is what mothers do, right? Even if they break your soul, you keep cooking for them. You keep showing love the only way you know how. I walked the 8 blocks to their house. The sun was high and hot. I could hear laughter inside, music, happy voices. I rang the doorbell. I heard footsteps. The door opened and there was Chloe, without a single scratch, without bandages, without bruises. Perfect, flawless, with her hair down and shining in the sun. We looked at each other. In her eyes I saw something that froze my blood. Annoyance. Pure annoyance. Not again, she screamed. Her voice tore through the morning air. I already told you that Sundays are for resting. Chloe, yesterday they told me you had fallen. It was nothing. It is over. Why do you always have to be suffocating us? I managed to look behind her. Matthew was sitting on the couch, watching football, holding a beer. He turned to look at me, but he did not get up. Chloe, please, I just want to know. No. And she slammed the door. Bang. The sound echoed in my chest like a gunshot. I stood there, holding that Tupperware of pot roast, staring at the door. Behind me, a neighbor was sweeping her driveway. She stopped and looked at me. Then she looked away, embarrassed for me. My legs felt like cement. I started walking back. 1 block, 2, 3. On the 4th block, my legs gave out. I sat down on the sidewalk, under a large oak tree, and I cried. I cried like a lost little girl. I cried like a widow. I cried like a betrayed mother. A woman walking by stopped. "Are you feeling sick, ma'am?" she called out to someone. I could not answer. I just shook my head no. When I finally reached my apartment, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I put the Tupperware of pot roast in the refrigerator. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I took it out and threw the entire thing in the trash. The pot roast I had made with love, with hope, with the illusion that I still mattered. Monday was a gray day. I did not leave the house. I did not eat. I just sat staring at the walls, feeling something inside me slowly dying. But Tuesday? Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning the phone rang. And what Chloe asked of me that Tuesday was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because there are humiliations that hurt, but there is sheer nerve that wakes you up. The phone vibrated on the kitchen table. The name on the screen, Chloe. I stared at that name flashing, and something inside me tensed up. 2 days earlier, she had slammed the door in my face. The day before that, her husband, my son, had made me rush to a hospital for an emergency that never existed. And now she was calling. I answered. I do not know why. Maybe because 50 years of taking care of others turns you into a person who always answers, always makes herself available, always says yes. "Well, mother-in-law, sweetie." Her voice was syrupy, overly sweet, like syrup spilling through the phone. "How are you? It has been so long since we talked, right? 2 days." It had been 2 days since the slammed door. "Fine," I lied. "Oh, that is great. Look, I am calling you because I need to ask you for a huge favor. You know I have always counted on you, right? You are an incredible mother-in-law. Incredible." The word felt like a slap. "Tell me." "Well, it turns out my parents are coming to stay with us for 2 weeks. You know how my mom is, very particular about everything. And the guest room is horrible. The paint is peeling, the curtains are super old, the mattress sags. I am embarrassed to have them sleep there." She paused dramatically. I did not say anything. "So I urgently need to renovate everything. New paint, some nice curtains like the ones they sell at Nordstrom, a good quality orthopedic mattress. I already got an estimate, and it is about $8,000. Nothing too crazy, right? $8,000. Nothing too crazy. My monthly rent was $900. My expenses for groceries, electricity, water, and gas added up to another $600. I lived on $1,500 a month. $8,000 was more than 5 months of my life. You have savings, right, sweetie? I know you have always been very careful, a good saver. I promise I will pay you back. In 6 months. Well, maybe 8 because right now we are a little tight on expenses, but it is guaranteed. You know Matthew makes good money. 8 months. While she kept talking, images started flashing through my mind like a movie. Sunday. The slammed door. Her scream. Sundays are for resting. Saturday. The fake emergency. My desperate sprint to the hospital. My $300 in my purse, just in case. The text. False alarm. The leftovers in the plastic container 3 weeks ago. Thursdays from 4 to 6 o'clock. 2 permitted hours. The humiliations. The comments about my clothes. My boring stories. And before all of that, my $150,000. The down payment for that house where they were now shutting the door on me. The house where Chloe's parents would sleep in a room renovated with my money. Again, always again, something shattered inside of me. It was not dramatic. There was no background music or a moment of divine enlightenment. It was simple, like when a rubber band is stretched so far that it finally snaps. "No," I said. The word came out on its own, firm, clear, silence on the other end. "What?" Chloe's voice completely changed. It was no longer honey. It was ice. "What do you mean, no? I do not have that money. And if I did, I would not give it to you. Are you being serious right now, Ruth?" She had never called me by my first name. It was always mother-in-law. "After everything we have done for you, everything they had done for me? What have you done for me, Chloe? Let you come over to our house, put up with you every week, invite you to family dinners, put up with me." That phrase. "Sundays are for resting," I said, repeating her own words. "Goodbye, Chloe." And I hung up. I hung up the phone and placed it on the table with trembling hands. I kept staring at it as if it were a strange object, as if the hands that had just hung up did not belong to me. The phone vibrated. Chloe calling again. I did not answer. It vibrated again, and again, and again. 8 calls in 20 minutes. I did not answer a single one. At 11 o'clock, a text from Matthew arrived. "Mom, what did you do to Chloe? She is very upset." I did not respond. Another text. "Seriously, we need to talk." I turned off the phone. I sat in the sunlight, and for the first time in years, I felt light. As if I had dropped a weight I had been carrying for so long, I had stopped noticing it. But that peace lasted exactly 6 hours. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I heard violent knocks on my door. "Mom, open up." It was Matthew. I opened the door. He was red-faced, sweating, his tie loosened, and his jacket wrinkled. He walked in without an invitation. "Can you tell me what is wrong with you?" He spat the words. "Why did you hang up on Chloe? Why are you not answering her?" I stood there looking at him. My son, the baby I had carried, the boy I defended from bullies at school, the young man whose college I paid for by selling my mother's jewelry, that man who was now screaming at me in my own home. "Matthew," I said slowly, "on Sunday your wife slammed the door in my face. On Saturday you made me rush to a hospital for an emergency that never existed. And today she asks me for $8,000 as if I were a bank. You always exaggerate everything." Chloe was stressed on Sunday. Saturday was a misunderstanding, and the money is a loan. She was going to pay you back. "No." "What?" I said, "No, Matthew. I do not have that money. And even if I did, the answer would be no." His face turned purple. "You know what? I am sick of your tantrums, Mom. Chloe is right. You are manipulative, always playing the victim, always with, 'I gave you everything, I sacrificed myself.' And you know what else?" He paused cruelly. "Chloe told me something a while ago, and she is right, that you have never accepted that I have my own family, that you want to keep being the center of my life. But I grew up, Mom. I do not need you like I used to." Every word was a stab wound. He left, slamming the door so hard it made the doorframe shake. I stood there, right in the middle of my living room, feeling my heart break into pieces so small I no longer even knew if any of them were still beating. That night I did not cry. I had no tears left. I just sat in the dark and thought, "It is over. I lost my son." But what I did not know was that while I was sinking into the worst sadness of my life, an old piece of paper, hidden among my documents, was about to change absolutely everything. I spent 3 days locked inside my apartment, 3 days barely eating, without showering, without opening the curtains. The phone stayed off. I did not want to know anything about anyone. I had hit rock bottom, and that bottom was dark, cold, and lonely. On Wednesday afternoon, I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by old boxes. I do not know what compelled me to open the closet in the back, the one where I kept things I had not touched in years. Maybe I needed to feel something other than pain. Maybe I was searching for memories of when my life made sense. I pulled out a dusty cardboard box. Inside were papers, old receipts, photographs, documents from the house I sold. There it was, the bill of sale. I opened it with trembling hands, sale of real estate located at. It listed my old address on the south side. Seller, Ruth Vance, widow. Amount, $150,000. The letters blurred with my tears. That house, my house, the one Tom and I bought with so much effort, the one I sold for my son. I kept reading, and then I saw something I did not remember. Clause 7, in fine print. In the event that the seller requires housing due to economic vulnerability, she will have the right to claim a reimbursement of $150,000, adjusted for inflation, or the right to cohabitate in an equivalent property owned by the buyer. I read that clause 3 times. Attorney Robert Vance, who helped me with the sale, had explained something like that to me, but I never paid attention. "I'm not going to need it," I thought back then. "He is my son. He will always take care of me." How naive I was. I kept digging through the box. Beneath the contract, there was a letter. The yellowed envelope had my name written in Tom's shaky handwriting. My heart skipped a beat. It was the letter he wrote to me before he died, when he was admitted to the hospital for those 3 days. The nurse gave it to me along with his belongings. I read it quickly through my tears back then, but I never paid attention to the end because the pain was tearing me in two. I opened it carefully, as if it were made of glass. My beautiful Ruth, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. Forgive me for leaving you alone. Forgive me for not being able to watch our Matthew grow up. Take good care of him. But remember this, my love. Taking care of him does not mean becoming his slave. A son who does not learn to value his mother's sacrifice is a son who never learned to be a real man. Do not let yourself be trampled by anyone, not by strangers, not by family, not even by our own son, if he ever forgets where he came from. Dignity is not inherited, Ruth. It is taught, and it is taught by setting boundaries, even if it hurts. I love you. I will always love you. But promise me you will never let anyone dim your light. Yours, Tom. Tears fell onto the paper, smudging some of the words. Tom knew. 26 years ago, from his hospital bed, he already knew I had that flaw. Giving myself away until I disappeared. Dignity is taught by setting boundaries, even if it hurts. I sat there on the floor, hugging that letter, while something changed inside of me. It was not sudden. It was like a sunrise. First there is darkness, then gray, then the light breaks across the horizon. And with that light came clarity. I turned on my phone. I had 47 missed calls, 28 from Chloe, 19 from Matthew. Texts from both of them, alternating between anger and manipulation. Chloe, you are selfish, Ruth. I hope when you are old and alone you remember this. Matthew, Mom, we need to talk. Chloe is a wreck because of you. I deleted all of them. I dialed a number I had saved for years. Attorney Robert Vance, the lawyer who helped me with the sale of my house. Mr. Vance, this is Ruth. I need to consult you urgently about a contract I signed 3 years ago. On Thursday afternoon, there was a knock at my door again. It was Matthew. But this time he looked terrified. I opened the door. Mom, he said with a trembling voice, I need to talk to you. It is important. I let him in. He sat on the couch, running his hands over his face. He was pale. Did you know Chloe does not work anymore? The air stood still. What? I called her company today. They told me she quit 14 months ago. 14 months, Mom. And all these months she has been lying to me. She gets dressed up in the mornings. She leaves with her briefcase, and I thought she was going to her office. His voice cracked. I checked the bank statements. Daily withdrawals at a casino, the Grand Victoria Casino. $200, $300, $500. Almost every day. Purchases at Nordstrom, at Macy's, all charged to my credit card. Mom, she has a gambling debt of $25,000. He covered his face with his hands. $25,000. At the casino, while she was asking me for $8,000 to renovate the guest room, I confronted her, Matthew continued. First, she denied everything. Then she cried. Then she screamed at me that it was my fault for not giving her enough money for her expenses, that she deserved to have fun because she worked so hard around the house. Worked? When we have our housekeeper, Brenda, who comes to clean 3 times a week. I looked at him. My son, finally, seeing the truth. Matthew, I said slowly, 2 weeks ago your wife slammed the door in my face after I sold my life savings so you too could have that house. A week ago you made me rush to a hospital for a fake emergency. And 4 days ago you demanded that I put up with Chloe's humiliations because I was manipulative and dramatic. He lowered his head. Mom, no, not anymore. It is over. I pulled out the contract I had been studying with Mr. Vance. This is the bill of sale for my house. It says right here that I have the legal right to claim compensation or housing. I'm going to exercise that right. Matthew looked at me with huge eyes. What? Tomorrow my lawyer will send the formal documentation. Either you pay me $200,000, adjusted for inflation, or I have the right to cohabitate in an equivalent property. Your house. My house. Mom, you cannot. Yes, I can, and I will. He stood up, stumbling. This is going to destroy everything. Chloe is going to learn, I said with a voice I did not recognize as my own. Cold. Firm. That dignity has no price tag. And you are going to learn that a mother is not an ATM with feelings. What neither of us knew was that in less than 72 hours, the whole truth was going to explode in a way no one expected. And by then, there would be no turning back. That night, Matthew did not sleep at his house. I knew because he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning from a hotel. His voice sounded broken, as if he had aged 10 years in a single day. Mom, I found more things. What things? I checked everything. The credit cards, the bank statements, even her phone. There are messages with her friends from the casino. Messages where she brags that her idiot husband does not notice anything. Where she says that you are a bitter old woman who just wants her money back. I heard his voice crack. There are receipts from an incredibly expensive spa on the Gold Coast, $800 in facial treatments. Clothes I have never even seen her wear. She probably resells them. Mom, she robbed me. She lied to me. And what did I do? I yelled at you. I called you manipulative. I told you I did not need you anymore, he cried. My 42-year-old son cried like a child on the phone. Forgive me. Please, forgive me. Something inside me softened, but only a little, because forgiveness without real change is useless. Matthew, you need to decide what kind of man you want to be. The one who defends his wife no matter what, or the one who defends what is right no matter who. I hung up before he could respond. On Friday morning, I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. It was Martha, my neighbor from the building, a tiny 70-year-old woman who always smelled of rose soap and fresh gossip. Ruth, I need to talk to you. It is important. I let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch, nervous, twisting her sweater in her hands. I did not know whether to tell you or not, but after what I found out yesterday, I cannot stay quiet anymore. What happened? On Wednesday, I went to the pharmacy in the neighborhood. You know, the one where Jessica, my friend's niece, works. I was there when your daughter-in-law walked in. She did not see me. She was talking on the phone really loud, like she owned the world. Martha leaned in, lowering her voice as if someone could hear us. She said, verbatim, "Do not worry, Mom. I took care of the nosy old bat. I told everyone she stole a gold ring my grandmother supposedly left me. Let us see who believes her now when she goes around gossiping." The coffee slipped from my hands. The mug shattered on the floor. What? You heard me, honey. Your daughter-in-law is going around the whole neighborhood, telling people that you stole a ring, that you took advantage of a bathroom break during a visit to take it from her jewelry box, and that is why they do not let you come to the house anymore. Rage crawled up my throat like boiling lava. I have never in my life stolen anything, ever. I know that, Ruth. Everyone who knows you knows that. But she has the tongue of a viper. She has already convinced half the neighborhood. Yesterday, at the grocery store, Carol asked me if it was true that you got caught stealing. I stood up, trembling. Not from fear, from pure fury. Martha, can you help me with something? Whatever you need, honey. I told her everything. The slammed door, the fake emergency, the casino, the debts, the money I gave for the house. Everything. Martha listened with her eyes getting wider and wider. That woman is the devil himself wearing false eyelashes, she finally said. What are you going to do? I am going to show her that a 68-year-old woman who survived poverty, widowhood, and 30 years of sewing uniforms does not let herself get trampled by a shameless liar. Martha smiled. Now I recognize you, Ruth. There is the woman I know. When she left, I called Attorney Vance. Mr. Vance, I need to speed up the process. I want to serve the legal notice this Sunday. Publicly? Publicly? Ruth? That could be intense. That is what I want. For it to be intense. I want Chloe's entire family to be there. I want them to see who she really is. There was a tense silence. I understand. I will prepare everything. But I need you to be completely sure. Once we take this step, there is no going back. I am sure. More sure than I have ever been in my life. On Saturday, I received a call from an unknown number. Mrs. Vance? This is Richard, Chloe's father. My heart sped up. Go ahead. Look, ma'am. My daughter told me there are disagreements. And I want you to know that we were not aware of many things. Matthew called me yesterday. He told me about the casino, the debts, the lies. He took a heavy pause. My wife and I are devastated. We raised Chloe with values. We do not understand what happened, but I want you to know that if what Matthew says is true about the money you put down for the house, we are going to help fix this. Richard, I appreciate your call, but this cannot be fixed with just money. I understand. That is why I am asking for an opportunity. On Sunday, we are going to be at Matthew's house. Chloe organized a family gathering. I do not know if you knew. She says it is to clear up misunderstandings. I am asking you to go, to give us a chance to fix this as a family gathering. Chloe organizing something after everything that had happened. How convenient. I will be there, I said, with my lawyer. Tense silence. Your lawyer? Yes, Richard. Because pretty words are not enough for me anymore. Now I need signed papers. I hung up. That night I did not sleep. I stayed awake organizing documents. The bill of sale, the bank transfer receipts, Tom's letter, the estimates from Mr. Vance, showing the updated value of my contribution. I looked at myself in the mirror. I had deep dark circles, wrinkles I had not noticed before, gray roots that needed touching up. But my eyes shined differently. It was no longer the look of a defeated woman. It was the look of a woman who had decided to fight. Sunday was going to be the day Chloe learned that not all mothers-in-law let themselves be humiliated, and that some, when they finally wake up, have the bite of a lion. Sunday, November 18th. 7 days after the slammed door that changed my life. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I showered calmly. I put on my gray skirt, an impeccable white blouse I had ironed the night before, and the silver earrings my mom gave me for my 15th birthday. I looked in the mirror and told myself, "Today you take back your dignity, Ruth, Mr. Vance arrived at my apartment at 11 o'clock. He was carrying a leather briefcase and a thick folder of documents. "Ready?" he asked me. More than ever. We arrived at the house at 12 o'clock on the dot, punctual because dignity is never late. There were 4 cars parked outside. I recognized Chloe's parents' car, her sister's car, and the uncle's car from out of town. Everyone was there. Perfect. I rang the doorbell, this time not with fear, but with determination. Chloe opened the door. She was wearing a cream-colored dress, heels, perfect makeup. She looked at me with contempt. Then she saw the lawyer. "Who is he?" "My lawyer? Attorney Robert Vance." Her face changed. "You what? Are you going to let us in, or are we going to do this out in the street?" I said with a firm voice. Chloe stepped aside, bewildered. We walked in. The living room was full. Chloe's parents were sitting on the main sofa. Her 2 sisters were on the accent chairs. Her uncle was near the window. Matthew stood by the fireplace, pale as paper. Everyone turned to look at us. "Good afternoon," I said. "Thank you for having us." Chloe's mother stood up, nervous. "Ruth, so good to see you. Come in, sit down. I prefer to stand, thank you." Chloe crossed her arms. "Can someone tell me what the meaning of this is? Why are you bringing a lawyer into my house?" "Into our house," Mr. Vance corrected her. "Or more specifically, to the house that was made possible thanks to a contribution of $150,000 from Mrs. Ruth Vance." Dead silence. "Mr. Vance opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. "I have here the bill of sale signed 3 years ago. Mrs. Vance sold her family estate to provide the full down payment for this property. Within that contract, there is a clause establishing her legal right to financial recovery or cohabitation." Richard, Chloe's dad, stood up. Wait, we did not know." "Because your daughter never told you the truth," I interrupted him, my voice no longer trembling but made of steel. "She never told you that she slammed the door in my face a week ago, that she made me rush to a hospital for a fake emergency, that she asked me for $8,000 to renovate a bedroom while she has casino debts of $25,000. Chloe's mother let out a gasp. "Casino? That is a lie," Chloe shrieked. "She is making things up because she is bitter." "Bitter?" I pulled out my own folder. Here are the bank transfers. Here is the notarized bill of sale for my house. Here are the receipts from Northwestern Memorial Hospital from Saturday, November 10th, where I spent an hour looking for her because Matthew told me she had been in an accident. Here is the estimate my lawyer ran. My contribution adjusted for inflation is equivalent today to $200,000. I placed each document on the coffee table with deadly calm. And here, I continued, is the signed statement from Martha, who heard you at the pharmacy, telling your mother that you invented a story about me stealing a gold ring just to ruin my reputation in the neighborhood. Chloe's older sister stood up. You did what? Chloe was red, shaking. I do not have to put up with this. You are crazy, you bitter old woman. Get out of my house. It is not your house, Mr. Vance said coldly. Legally, Mrs. Vance has the right to demand immediate compensation or the right of residency. We are here to serve you formal notice. Richard ran his hands over his face. His wife, Susan, was crying silently. Chloe, Richard said with a broken voice. Is it true about the casino? Matthew spoke up for the first time. It is true, Richard. It is all true. I found the bank statements, the debts, everything. Chloe turned toward him like a viper. You promised me you were not going to say anything, you traitor. Traitor? Matthew took a step toward her. I am the idiot who let you humiliate my mother for 3 years because I did not want any trouble. The idiot who screamed at the woman who sold her house so we could have this one. Susan, Chloe's mother, walked over to me with tears in her eyes. Ruth, I do not know what to say. We will pay. We will sell whatever we have to sell, but we will pay you what you are owed. With all due respect, Susan, I said slowly, this is not just about money. It is about dignity. Your daughter needs to learn that people are not disposable, that mothers are not ATMs, that respect is not begged for, it is demanded. Chloe exploded. Shut up already. Nobody asked you to sell your house. You did it all by yourself, and now you are coming here to collect like a loan shark. The silence that followed was so heavy I could feel it in my bones. Richard walked over to his daughter and spoke to her with a voice I had never heard him use. Cold, disappointed. Chloe, you disgust me. We have been helping you with extra expenses for months. Now I understand where that money was going. Tomorrow morning we are going to the casino and you are going to close any account you have there. And you are going to find a job. A real job. Dad! Do not talk to me. You failed me. You failed all of us. I looked at Matthew. His eyes were red. His hands were trembling. Mom, he said with a broken voice, I am sorry. Forgive me. But forgiveness, as I told my son that afternoon, is not given away for free. It is earned. And what happened next, in the following days, would define whether my family could be fixed, or if there were broken things that could simply never be glued back together. That Sunday afternoon, after the confrontation, nobody moved for what felt like hours, but were barely minutes. Finally, Richard broke the silence. Ruth, please sit down. We need to discuss this calmly. I sat down, not because I felt weak, but because it was the right thing to do. Richard looked at his daughter with a mix of disappointment and rage I had never seen in a father. Chloe, go to your room, now. But Dad, now. Chloe ran out, sobbing. Her sisters followed her, more out of curiosity than support. Once they were gone, Richard sat across from me. Susan, his wife, wiped her tears and took my hand. Ruth, we have no words to apologize, if we had known, but you did not know, I said softly, because you raised your daughter with values and she decided to hide who she really is from you. Mr. Vance cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand the emotional situation, but we have legal matters to resolve, Mrs. Vance is entitled to $200,000 or cohabitation in this property. Richard nodded. We know, and we are going to pay. But we need time. We do not have that amount of liquid cash right now. How much time do you need? I asked. We have a rental property in Lake Geneva. We can sell it. In 3 months, maximum 4, we would have the full amount. I looked at my lawyer. He gave a slight nod. It was a reasonable proposal. But there are conditions, I said. Whatever you want. First, Chloe has to find a real job. not a fake one, a real one, and send me pay stubs every month. Done, Richard said without hesitation. Second, she has to attend therapy for a gambling addiction, with proof of attendance as well. Susan nodded fervently. We already planned on that. She has a problem and needs professional help. Third, I want the $25,000 debt from the casino to be paid by her and by you, not by Matthew. He has carried enough of a burden. Matthew, who had remained quiet, looked at me with glassy eyes. Mom. No, son, you were a victim too. She lied to you. She manipulated you. You are not going to pay for her mistakes. Richard extended his hand. Deal. We will pay that debt. Mr. Vance drafted a preliminary document right then and there. Richard and Susan signed it, committing to pay $200,000 in installments. $40,000 a month for 4 months, plus $40,000 the 5th month. By the time we finished, it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Matthew walked me outside while the lawyer put his documents in his car. Mom, I need to tell you something. I looked at him. I found the shawl, the one you gave Chloe on our wedding day. My heart skipped a beat. Where was it? She sold it. 2 years ago, at a local antique shop downtown. I saw a text message she got $200 for it. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. My mother's shawl, my grandmother's shawl, sold like an old rag for $200. But I got it back, Matthew added quickly. Yesterday I went to all the shops downtown asking around. I found it in one of them. I paid $500 to get it back. He pulled a cloth bag out of his car. Inside was my shawl, the deep blue one with gold flowers. A little faded, but it was there. I cried. For the first time in days, I cried tears of relief. Thank you, son. No, Mom. Thank you for not giving up, for teaching me that love does not mean allowing abuse. We hugged each other on the street, under the November sun, while the neighbors discreetly watched from their windows. The following days were strange. Chloe got a job at a grocery store as a cashier. Her parents forced her to. At first she made faces, cried, and said it was humiliating. But Richard was firm. Either she worked, or she moved out of the house and figured things out on her own. She started gambling addiction therapy 3 times a week. Susan religiously sent me photos of the attendance slips. Matthew temporarily moved into the guest room. I need to think about whether I want to stay married to her, he told me over the phone one night. I did not give him advice. That was his path, not mine. But something interesting happened during the 3rd week. Chloe called me. Her voice sounded different, tired, humble. Ruth, can we talk? Tell me if you say no. I understand, and I will hang up. Go ahead. I want to apologize. Truly, not with pretty words to look good, but because I am understanding the damage I caused. She took a long pause. In therapy, they are making me see things, like how I used gambling to fill a void. Like how I treated the people who loved me terribly because I felt miserable with myself. Like how you were never the problem. I was. I did not say anything. I just listened. I do not expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I am going to change. Not for you all, for me. Because I do not want to be this person I see in the mirror, Chloe, I said slowly. Real change takes time. And it is proven with actions, not words. When I see those actions, then we can talk about forgiveness. I understand. Thank you for listening to me. She hung up. I do not know if she was sincere. Only time would tell. But I had already learned my lesson. I was never again going to sacrifice my dignity waiting for others to change. Now, my own change was what mattered. And that change was just beginning. Because what came next, in the following months, not only rebuilt my relationship with Matthew, but taught me something I had forgotten for decades. How to live for myself. 4 months passed since that Sunday. 4 months in which my life changed in ways I never imagined. The first payment arrived on time. $40,000, deposited into my account on November 25th. Richard kept his word. With that money, I did something I had been putting off for years. I went to the dentist. I got 3 aching teeth fixed, things I had never taken care of because my money always had to stretch for other things. I bought new clothes, not from a thrift store, but from a department store. blouses that made me feel pretty, comfortable shoes, a burgundy coat I loved the moment I saw it. The woman in the fitting room looked at me strangely when I got so excited trying on clothes. "It has been a long time since you bought yourself something new, hasn't it?" she asked with a smile. 30 years, I answered, and we both laughed, even though I had tears in my eyes. The second payment arrived in December, another $40,000. With that, I started looking for an apartment. I wanted something small but dignified, with natural light, near the grocery store, with friendly neighbors. I found it in a nice neighborhood in Oak Park. A second-floor apartment with a little balcony overlooking a park, 2 bedrooms, an updated kitchen, and a renovated bathroom. It cost $180,000. I bought it in cash. For the first time in my life, I bought something that was only mine, with no mortgage, without owing anything to anyone. The day I got the keys, I cried in that empty apartment, on my knees on the floor, giving thanks. To Tom, to my mom, to life for giving me this second chance. Chloe kept working. Matthew would send me pictures without her knowing. Pictures of Chloe, in her grocery store uniform, looking tired, without her perfect makeup, her hair tied in a simple ponytail. She complains every day. Matthew told me one afternoon, when he came to visit my new apartment. She says her feet hurt, that the customers are rude, that she is exhausted. "Welcome to the real world," I said without malice. Just with the truth. Matthew smiled sadly. Her therapist says she is making progress. She has not set foot in a casino in 2 months, but I do not know if I can ever trust her again. Son, only you can decide that. But remember, love without respect is just a habit, and a habit is not enough to build a life on. We sat in silence, drinking coffee on my new balcony, watching the kids play in the park below. "You know what the saddest part is?" he finally said. "That all this time I knew. Deep down I knew something did not add up, but it was easier to ignore it than to face it. It was easier to blame you for exaggerating than to admit my wife had a problem. That is called passive complicity," I said. "And it hurts just as much as active betrayal." He lowered his head. "I know. And I am so ashamed, Mom." I squeezed his hand. "Regret that does not generate change is just self-pity. But I see you changing. That is what matters." In January, the 3rd payment arrived. In February, the 4th. In March, I received a call from Barbara, Tom's old friend, who worked at a local community radio station. "Ruth, do you remember I host that show? Life Stories?" "Yes, of course. I need you to come tell your story. No real names, but I need other women to hear what you went through. How did you set boundaries? How did you get your dignity back?" At first, I hesitated. What was I going to say? How was it going to sound? Broadcasting my life on the air. But then I thought about all the Ruths out there in the world. The mothers who made themselves invisible out of love. The mothers-in-law humiliated in silence. The women who gave everything and received crumbs in return. "I will do it," I said. The program aired on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was in the studio for an hour, telling my story. Barbara was respectful. She asked smart questions. She gave me space to cry when I needed to. I did not give names. I did not give addresses. But I told the truth. The next day, the station received 247 calls, 247 women wanting to share similar stories. Abused mothers-in-law, ignored mothers, grandmothers used as free babysitters and then discarded. Barbara called me, crying. "Ruth, you touched something deep, very deep." A week later, I received a letter at the radio station. It was from a woman in Evanston. "Ruth, I do not know who you are, but thank you. Thank you for giving me the courage to say no to my daughter-in-law, who was asking me to borrow $500 every month that she never paid back. Yesterday, I told her no more." I cried. My voice shook, but I did it. And when I hung up the phone, I felt free for the first time in 5 years. "You saved me. God bless you." I have that letter framed in my new living room. In May, the 5th and final payment arrived. $40,000. I now had the full $200,000. Matthew came to visit me that day. He brought papers. Mom, Chloe, and I signed the divorce papers. It is official. I looked at him. He looked thinner, but calmer, like he had dropped a heavy weight. "Are you okay?" Yes, for the first time in years? Yes, she is moving in with her parents while she finishes paying off her half of the casino debt. I am keeping the house. And I want you to know something. He pulled out another document. This is the title to the property. I put it in your name too. 50% mine, 50% yours. Legally. Because that house was always yours just as much as it was mine. I felt my chest tighten. Son, I do not need. Yes, you do. You need to know that your son finally learned the lesson, that love is proven through actions. That gratitude is not just a pretty word on a Mother's Day card. We hugged. A long, tight hug, the kind that heals old wounds. And as I hugged him, I knew my story did not end there. Because what came next, the true gift of all of this, was not the recovered money. It was discovering who I was beyond just being a mother, just being a mother-in-law, just being the woman who gave without receiving. A full year had passed since that Sunday of confrontation. It was November again, the month of changes. I was on my balcony, drinking my morning coffee with cinnamon, looking at the park. I did this every morning now. Not because I had nothing to do, but because I had learned that I deserved these moments of peace. My apartment no longer felt empty. I had filled the walls with photos. Tom and I when we were young, Matthew as a child, my mom in her youth. I also had plants, ferns, African violets, a small potted rosebush that Matthew had given me, and on the main wall, framed behind glass, was the blue shawl with gold flowers. The phone rang. It was Matthew. Mom, can I come over this afternoon? I have something to tell you. Of course, son, I will bake some pecan cookies. He arrived at 5 o'clock. He had a look of novelty on his face. That expression people have when they are carrying good secrets. I met someone, he blurted out. I froze. You met someone? Her name is Emily. She is an engineer too. She works at my company, but on a different floor. I met her at a training seminar 3 months ago. Mom, she is different. Down to earth, honest. She treats me well, but she does not coddle me. She challenges me when I am making a mistake. I smiled. And do you tell her when you make a mistake? Yes, I told her everything. About Chloe, about the casino, about what I did to you, everything. And do you know what she told me? What? That she respected that I had learned from it, but that her real test would be seeing how I treat my mom, that a man who does not value his mother will eventually not value his partner. I felt my heart swell with pride, not for myself, but for my son, who was finally learning. I want you to meet her, but only if you want to, Mom. No pressure. I would love to meet her. The following week, Matthew brought Emily over for lunch. She was a 40-year-old woman, average build, wearing glasses and a kind smile. She arrived with a bouquet of daisies and a lemon pie she had baked herself. Ruth, Matthew has told me so much about you. I hope we can get to know each other without rushing. Without rushing. How different from Chloe, who from day one had measured, calculated, manipulated. We ate peacefully. Emily asked me genuine questions about my life, my work sewing. What was Tom like? When I showed her the shawl, her eyes filled with tears. What a beautiful piece, and what a painful history. But I am so glad you got it back. She did not ask for anything. She did not evaluate my apartment with critical eyes. She did not make comments about my clothes or my age. She was simply kind, respectful, real. When they left, Matthew hugged me at the door. What do you think? That she is a good woman, and that you have grown a lot to be able to recognize that. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected visitor, Chloe. She knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. When I opened it and saw her there, I almost closed it on instinct. But something stopped me. She looked different. No heavy makeup, wearing simple clothes, jeans, a sweater, sneakers, her hair pulled back into a basic ponytail. And in her eyes, there was something I had never seen before. Genuine humility. Ruth, can I speak with you for 5 minutes? If you say no, I understand, and I will leave. I let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch, like a guest who knows she is not welcome. I have been in therapy for a year, she began without any preamble. And my therapist gave me an assignment. To come apologize to you. Not so you forgive me. so that I can find closure. She pulled a folded letter out of her purse. I wrote it all down. Everything I did to you, everything I thought, everything I felt. I read it in therapy, and it made me so ashamed that I threw up afterward. She handed me the letter. I did not take it yet. I was a horrible person to you, and do you know what the worst part is? I have no excuses. I cannot blame my childhood, or mental problems, or anything. I was simply selfish, manipulative, and cruel. To you, to Matthew, to my own parents. Her voice trembled. I lost everything because of my own fault. My marriage, my reputation, my family's trust. And I deserve to lose it. But what I regret the most is robbing you of 3 years of peace. 3 years where I should have treated you like the queen you are for having given so much. She cried. No theatrics. No seeking pity. She just cried. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I changed. I am still working at the grocery store. I have not stepped foot in a casino in 14 months. I go to therapy 3 times a week. I am paying off my debt. And I learned the hardest lesson of my life, that someone else's dignity is non-negotiable. She left the letter on the coffee table and stood up. Thank you for listening. And thank you for teaching me, even if it was the hard way, that consequences exist. She walked toward the door. Chloe, I said. She stopped. Forgiveness is not given overnight. It is built over time. But I admire that you came here. That shows bravery. She nodded, crying. I know, and I will not bother you again. I just wanted to close this the right way. She left. I read her letter that night. It was brutal in its honesty. She confessed to things I did not even know about. How she had planned to humiliate me at gatherings. How she had manipulated Matthew against me. How she envied my strength. I did not feel satisfaction. I only felt sadness for the woman who could have been my daughter-in-law if she had made different choices. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe someday I would forgive her completely, maybe not. But it was no longer my job to carry her guilt. And as I closed that drawer, I understood something profound. That my story was never about revenge. It was about recovering something I had forgotten existed. Myself. Today is Sunday. Exactly a year and a half after that slammed door changed my life. It is 11 o'clock in the morning, and I am standing in front of my bedroom mirror, putting on my mom's silver earrings. I look different, not just physically, although I did lose weight, cut my hair to my shoulders, and now wear colors I used to think were not meant for my age. I look different in my eyes. They no longer carry that look of permanent apology. The look of a woman asking permission to exist. Now, my eyes have peace and firmness. And something I had lost decades ago, the certainty of my own worth. The doorbell rings. It is Matthew. He comes over every Sunday now, but no longer because I desperately need him to, but because he wants to be here. I open the door. Hi, Mom. I brought pastries from that bakery you love. Emily is with him, carrying fresh flowers for my table. Can I help you make the coffee, Ruth? Emily calls me Ruth, with genuine affection, not with Chloe's poisoned condescension. I told her she could just call me by my name, and she insists that is how she shows respect. Respect? What a powerful word when it is offered genuinely. We eat breakfast on the balcony. They tell me about their week, about their plans. Matthew asks for my opinion on important matters, and when I give him my perspective, he listens. He really listens. Mom, Matthew says after a while. Emily and I want to tell you something. She blushes. He smiles. We are getting married in 6 months, and we want it to be a small wedding, intimate. But we want you to say a few words at the ceremony. About love, about what it really means to love. My eyes fill with tears, but they are different tears, happy tears, hopeful tears. It would be an honor. Emily takes my hand. And Ruth, we want you to know something. This time there will be no visiting rules, no schedules, no slammed doors. Our house will be your house, always. After they leave, I sit on my balcony with a notebook. I have started writing. Barbara convinced me to write a book about my story. There are millions of women who need to read this, she told me. At first, it seemed absurd. Who would want to read about an old seamstress from the south side of Chicago? But then I thought about those 247 calls to the radio show, the letters I keep receiving, the women who stop me at the grocery store to tell me, "You were the lady on the radio, right?" Thank you. Thank you for giving me courage. So, I write. And as I write, I reflect on everything I learned. I learned that true love never asks you to make yourself small so that others can feel big. I learned that giving does not mean disappearing. I learned that being a mother does not mean being a martyr. I learned that dignity has no age limit, and that it is never too late to take it back. I learned that saying no does not make you a bad person. It makes you a whole person. I learned that consequences exist, and it is an act of love to let others face them. And I learned that sometimes hitting rock bottom is necessary to remember that you have legs and you can stand back up. Yesterday, I ran into Chloe's mom at the farmer's market. Susan approached me timidly. "Ruth, how are you?" "I am well, Susan. And you?" "Surviving." Chloe reached 2 years without gambling this week. She is still working. She is still in therapy. She paid off her entire debt. And she is taking night classes for an accounting certificate. I am glad to hear that. Susan lowered her voice. "She asks about you sometimes. She does not dare reach out to you, but she asks." "Give it time," I said. "Some bridges are rebuilt, others are not. And that is okay." Susan nodded with tears in her eyes. "You are a wise woman, Ruth. I wish I had your strength at your age." I laughed. "Susan, I did not have this strength at my age. I found it because I was forced to look for it. The strength was always there. It was just asleep. Now, sitting on my balcony, watching the sun set over the park, I think about that Ruth from a year and a half ago, the one who rushed to the hospital for fake emergencies, the one who accepted leftovers in a disposable container, the one who cried for 8 blocks on her way home, carrying a pot roast nobody wanted. That Ruth does not exist anymore. And I do not miss her. In her place is a woman who knows her worth, who enjoys her morning coffee, who has friends, activities, her own plans, who visits her son when she wants to, not just when she is needed. A woman who started sewing again, but now for pleasure, not out of necessity, who makes dresses for the neighborhood girls' proms and does not charge them, just because she likes seeing the happiness on their faces. A woman who forgave her son, but did not forget the lesson. A woman who maybe, someday, will completely forgive Chloe. Or maybe not, but who no longer loses sleep thinking about it. Because in the end, I understood something my Tom wrote to me so many years ago. Dignity is not inherited, it is taught. It is defended. It is taken back. And it is never, ever too late to remember that you deserve it. If my story touched your heart, if at any point you saw yourself reflected in these words, leave me a comment. Tell me where you are listening from. Tell me if you have also had to set difficult boundaries, if you also had to choose your dignity over your comfort. Hit the like button if this story reminded you that it is never too late to stand back up. And subscribe to keep sharing real stories of women who did not give up. Because in the end, true wealth is not found in what you give. It is found in knowing when to stop giving to someone who only knows how to take. And in remembering, always, that your worth is not defined by how much you can endure. It is defined by how much you respect yourself. The end.